Assassin's Creed 16 plus.
Really?
Because you can kill innocent people in Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
You're not killing anybody in Assassin's Creed because the whole game takes place inside.
Oh, Jesus! What about blood in Assassin's Creed? Do you see a lot of blood?
No.
See, like stuff like that totally works. You know, like that's the funny thing for me is, and I'm gonna give you some examples now that are tricky for me. So first of all, there are multiple questions. So do we have evidence enough? You know, what is violence? What is realism really the main problem we have about violence? Who are we protecting in the end? Does it help? You know, and for me, as coming from education science, that's not even. It doesn't really mean that it's appropriate for a certain age. You know, and I know that most parents struggle with the decision. They buy a game 3+ and think it's for their 4-year-olds, but it's like a simulation game. You know, and and the kids cannot play it. And I know that thousands of games, or maybe, I don't know how many, but a lot of games are sold or are sold for parents that buy the wrong games for their kids because they didn't know what was appropriate. But okay, the age rating says that's not their problem. They care about legal stuff. But now I have 3 problems that I would like to discuss with you guys. And the first one is this one here. So Doom was indexed by the German rating system in 1994. You couldn't buy this game in Germany. You could buy it in Austria, Neighborland. It was good for our sales. Now the same game comes out for the Game Boy. 7 years later, 16+. Yeah, not 18+, not indexed, 16+. And I asked this guy who did that, and I was like, how do you do it? Like, do you just sit there and say like, well, we indexed it a few years ago and now it's 16+? And he goes like, yeah, that was a bit weird, you know. and I was like, so what does that mean? And he's like, yeah, you know, times are changing. And I thought like, guys, shouldn't you question your whole system if that's the case? Yeah.
Well, I'm reminded of how, for example, the FCC does things like obscenity in the United States, right? Where the extent of their regulation is the phrase prevailing community standards. Yeah. Because the idea is that they wanted a flexible enough system so that it can adapt as culture changes. So things you can say on television in the US now, you would be executed for saying like 30 years ago. So I mean, this seems like, I have to wonder if it's just a matter of you need a system that Germans are different. Maybe they're happier killing pixelated demons now more than they were.
But the previous rating still is there. If you bought the PC game in 2001, it's still going to be indexed based on that rating, right? Like nothing, like it's a problem with movies right now. Like movies that were PG-13 or, you know, that's a younger standard, but yeah, they don't get reclassified.
I mean, if a game gets indexed, does that mean yeah, that's it. It'll never get sold here in Germany.
It will never. You can never buy it in Germany. It's not buyable.
So they can't be changed at all.
That was interesting. Now they changed that because of that. You know, for them it was possible to kind of like get the game back. But I think
€2,000. We'll re-index your game.
Guy in the streets of Munich in a black cloak with like Doom for the PC on the inside of the code.
That was the other problem, that the list that the USK makes, you can look in Wikipedia and see all the games, and it was like a shopping list for kids back in the days. You know, they were like, hey, if you want to buy the cool games, buy the games that they were indexing. You know, and but still, it kind of like, honestly, if I work for them and like if they want me to really discuss that, I'm like, guys, we have a problem. We should really discuss that. But I have a bigger problem.
Actually, actually, also, there's another rationalization for that, which is that in 1993, Doom was realistic violence. Yeah. And in 2001, it's cartoony violence. Yeah. Which is just because of the technical advances.
And you know, what is in 10 years?
Oh,
might not even get an age rating anymore. Yeah?
No, there's a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
One is, it doesn't make sense if you're looking at it as a scientific question. If you look at it as a political question, it makes plenty of sense. The other thing is, who's ever rating the game now are people who played Doom in 1993. It's a different generation. So the generation that's looking at games now has a very different view of games than in 1993, when the adults who were rating games were people that played Parcheesi.
In the case of Germany, it's still the same vibe. No, but he's a nice guy. He's he's very open about that. He just says, but it's exactly what you say. Honestly, I would be happy if they say, by the way, the whole age rating system is political stuff. You know, it's all about ethics, morals, whatever.
You asked the question, is who are we trying to protect on the ESP rating? We're trying to protect the people who are making the games, right? That's why they come out with the rating. Because if they don't, Lieberman or some other politician is going to just ban games for anybody under 18 and an entire market's going to disappear. So, and I suspect it's true of the European. It's the game makers protecting themselves, which is why these exist.
That's interesting. They will say they protect the kids, and the politicians would say we protect the parents, because we don't want to have angry parents, because that's bad for politics. You know, but it's interesting how everybody is kind of like giving the responsibility to somebody else, which is it's interesting. So, but let's look at this example, and now we're getting at the problem the age rating has. Edna and Harvey is going to come out very soon in America. I hope we have a sound. We'll see. Do we have? No. Just in case I don't, we'll see. So Edna and Harvey, I just showed you a short trailer. So Edna is in prison in the soul asylum because she's accused of having murdered her neighbor. The neighbor is the son of the headmaster of the soul asylum, and he killed his son. So he imprisoned her and said it was her fault. She wakes up after years of shock therapy and thinks like, well, how do I get out of there? And she can use her rabbit and to get out of the whole thing. That's the game about. The funny thing is for me in that game, how did the age rating react to that? So as you can see, Peggy gave it a 12+. And here comes the funny part. The Germans gave it a 0. So it's like no age rating. You can play it as a 2-year-old. And what did they do? They looked at the graphics. They were like, oh, it looks cute. It's about this girl and her rabbit. And they were like, ah, that's perfect. You know, she's maybe imprisoned, but she will be free. And, and what I found really interesting in this game is, in this game, after a certain while, you find out that she's in a really terrible position. She hasn't seen her father in 10 years. She gets electroshocks all the time, and everybody is totally crazy. And she has to find a way out and back to reality and find out why the hell she was imprisoned for such a long time. And in America, they're just it got this one here, so they are just considering which age rating they are giving, and it was an interesting example for me to show that there are games out there that there is no sign of like violence in this game ever on a visual basis. You never, beside the electroshock, you never really see any form of active violence. You know, it's a point-and-click adventure. It's really cute, but the topic and the story behind it is quite tough, and it kind of like showed a new problem. And it gets even worse in my last problem I want to show you is Naughty Bear. And I would just give you a short introduction by Naughty Bear, by this very nice English guy. Can you make it a little bit loud?
For the serious gamer.
Hey, it's Spider-Bite at NextGenTactics.com, and yeah, you got it right. It's Naughty Bear, Episode 1, The Party, Part 1 of 2, and this game is like serious kick-ass.
Who's this? Oh look, it's Naughty Bear. Hello, Naughty Bear.
Nothing like an English narrator.
What's this, Naughty Bear? What are they doing? It looks like they're waiting for something. Look, it's a boat. I wonder what it's bringing. My, that's a very big box. I wonder what's inside it. It's a birthday cake.
Oh.
Looks like they're going to have a magnificent birthday party for Daddles. And look at all those presents.
It's Daddle's birthday party. Sweet.
They look like they're hiding the cake away. Perhaps they don't want any uninvited guests to come to Daddles' birthday party. Have you been invited to Daddles' birthday party, Naughty Bear? Perhaps you've been too naughty recently. I wonder if there's something you can do about it.
Oh, I think so.
Did you make that for Daddles? Oh, you're such a thoughtful bear. What a shame you didn't get invited. Perhaps you should go and give it to him anyway. Maybe then he'll be your friend.
Yeah, let's give Daddles the birthday present anyway. Look at these dumb bears.
Good gosh, Naughty, how insanely rude of Chubby and Giggles. And after you went to all that trouble to make a present. If I were you, I would throw that present in the fire and go and do something about all this nonsense.
Yeah, let's go do something about it. Oh yeah, Naughty Bear. I can't believe we're playing this game. So yeah, there's an online manual. It's like 37 pages long.
It plays on. So in Naughty Bear, like this is the problem. It's a major problem. You didn't get invited to a party.
We gotta make the bears pay.
And now what you can do in this game is take revenge for that. You can choose any weapon you find and pretty much, excuse me, but beat the shit out of the other teddy bears. And
can't you like set up elaborate traps for them?
yes,
Such as like
bear
luring them to a fire and then
yes,
running up to them and kicking them into it.
What I found very interesting, and you'll see that very soon, in that game, the teddy bears, like, they don't have any chance of defending themselves. They like more or less run away from you, and what you do is find a way to kill them anyway. So it's really a pure form of sadistic violence against teddy bears that are not defending themselves. And while you see that, what happened, the publisher rated a 16 plus for that game. And Piggy said, well, cartoon violence against cartoon violence. No reason for a 16 plus, we're gonna give it a 12 plus. So it was a very interesting case for me that they were overruling the publisher and said, no, we give it a 12 plus because we have no reason with our criteria to give it a 16 plus. And what I realized in that moment, they were quite proud about that decision because they said, wow, how good is our rating system? But I said, hey guys, in this game, you are fighting against somebody and you'll see it soon, like here are the teddy bears. And what you do is most of the time sneak up and then like start hitting them, they run away. And you choose certain weapons and you can you put the sound on again? It's kind of gives you a sense of what this is about.
Yeah, hit the bears, yeah! Hit those bears, make them pay. Damn you, bear.
First destroy the machines.
That's what you get for not inviting us to the party. Oh, Chubby's giving an order. Oh no, the other bear's hiding. They're hiding. Let's go get them. We're gonna destroy all the stuff first. Yeah, that's what you get for not inviting us. Your stupid party that we don't want to be invited to anyway. Okay, so see how our score multiplier is going up? It's at 25. Yeah, so we have multiplier 25 right now. And it ticks down, so you gotta keep doing stuff. Naughty stuff.
Yeah, you have to do naughty stuff, otherwise you lose energy. So you're in trouble already a little.
Oh no. What's going on? Oh, there's another kid in there.
So they're trying to like... And what's interesting, and now you can decide if you want to go on hitting him until he's dead. So...
Eradication! Oh yeah, sweet.
Okay, and the game goes on like this. What I found very interesting in that aspect for me was the question if the rating system is capable of handling games like this. You know, because and one big issue I have with the rating system is that I said, guys, in this sense, you should also get the context of the game. You should get that it's like you really use sadistic violence against teddy bears not defending themselves. And they were like, it's all about the content, and it's all about if it's realistic or not realistic. And that's where my whole issue begins with them. And this is, so in the moment I'm searching for games that do something like that and try to make them think about new ways and new approaches to handle age rating systems. And yeah, and now what we would like to do is just play games and look at some violent topics and see and discuss what we think about these. And if we come up with ideas how we can use ratings differently, let's just bring it up. Okay, Matt, let's just play some games.
Well, we've got a bunch of games, so we actually we were wondering if we have a few games that are another one that's kind of like a weird borderline case, which was a very cartoony game that was very violent. If people want to play that, but it's really more just like what people are interested in, what people would like to do. We actually have Mortal Kombat, even though you know, we didn't actually show it. It might be interesting to just talk about it and just how times have changed. Is anybody? We could actually play that. Is anybody interested in playing that? Or no? Yes.
I'm interested
What?
in Manhunt.
Would you like
Say
to?
something.
Would you like to see Manhunt?
Yeah, I've never seen it before.
Okay.
I've never even talked to somebody who's played Manhunt.
Okay, let's play
Manhunt
Manhunt.
was one of the, yeah, that was probably the most controversial one in the last, one of the most controversial ones in the last 10 years. So who has not seen this game before? Most people. So this is what this game was really controversial for.
Should we put the sound on a little?
Yeah. You won't hear the crunches.
It's so fascinating because the static makes it so much more violent and more disturbing to watch.
Well, that's interesting. That I mean, by the standards of today, I mean these graphics are. I mean, I guess they're sort of realistic, but they're definitely different than the graphics you'd have nowadays. And it is interesting that the game is deliberately evoking the seedy world of snuff films. Like if it just didn't have the filter and didn't have the narrative device of snuff films, would it somehow be less violent? I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting thing to ask.
I think that that's definitely true because context. I mean, that sort of context is the only reason why you can consider games like the original Silent Hill scary, because they're so like pixelated. They're so like the realism of the situation is very minimal. Or like I don't know if anyone's played Penumbra, which was the first of like Amnesia: The Dark Descent. That game, the dog that you fight is so blocky, so unrealistic looking, but the way that it uses sound and darkness and you're not in control of what's happening, all of those external things can make something really disturbing and scary, even if your actual like fidelity with realism isn't so great.
So so it sounds like you would agree that something that was presenting itself to the player consciously as this is reality would have like a higher kind of value as violence to you? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm actually saying it's more the opposite. That it's the realism has nothing to do with how violent it is. It's more like how that realism is presented, how the context of the violence. Like the creepy snuff film atmosphere of this makes it so much more disturbing than if you were just like shanking people in an alley, even though that's like also disturbing.
So it'll be interesting. After we see this, we'll see another game that actually came out almost around the same time as this. I think the same year, maybe within the same 6-month period. Scene failed.
Yeah, I'm not.
It's funny that if you die, we don't get to see your gruesome death.
What year did this come out?
Things like Silent Hill could never actually be recreated with today's realism because it's actually too realistic.
No, it's more that I think that the realism is something that's totally independent from the framing of it. Like, Penumbra is my big example because I've been playing that a while and I don't want to turn out the lights anymore, but it's like, it's one of those things where I think if it was more real...
Also, just before, wait a minute, hold it, don't attack him yet. This death will be more... sorry, I said don't attack him yet because the death is actually more spectacular from a voyeuristic point of view the longer you hold the button down. So the fact that you're trying to create for the audience a better kind of product of snuff film is actually part of the aesthetic of this game, and I just wanted to point that out. But I just interrupted you, so I'm sorry.
No, it's just that the framing of the violence I think is so important. So like a game like Silent Hill could certainly be made today, but what makes it so scary is the framing of the violence, the framing of the horror. The realism, I'm not sure if the realism helps at all in making something disturbing, I guess is what I'm saying. I mean, like, watching the Naughty Bear video, I thought it was kind of like, I was cringing a little.
I don't know, I feel like if it was a gun, it would be kind of more fantastical to me, even just like a household object.
Like the fact that he's using this everywhere.
Like when I play Halo, I'm not like, oh, I can do this in real life, but this guy is going around with a plastic bag.
Actually,
I'm
no,
like, I guess I could.
that is an interesting point.
I feel like I originally thought that there was not really all that much to this realism equals automatically disturbing kind of argument, but the more I think about it, then maybe there is something to that actually. So I feel like without taking any other context into account, the perceived realism of the game adds a level of disturbingness to it, right? So that is, but the point is, I guess, not that this is that the realism is the thing which is bad, but it's the fact that it's disturbing because it's realistic that is bad.
That's where you said perceived realism.
Yeah,
which
that also will change over time. Necessarily.
So you're saying that, like, because you know an audience is going to see it a certain way, that is a different value. So that's why Doom or this or whatever definitely has a different value over time. Yeah, because it's not that it is realistic, because realism changes, but they're seeing it. What you see is real. Is changing.
Well, especially because it's more, quote unquote, more realistic than what came before it. I think might be part of the reason why, like, every time a new game comes out, it's like, oh, it's so much more real. Even though it's like, even at the, well, this is kind of bloody, but like.
When you said realism, it's funny when you said realism is creepy, because I know this isn't what you meant, but I was thinking of like Jeff Bridges and the new Tron movie, because I was thinking of like Uncanny Valley, like when you try to make something so real it looks creepy, and it's interesting to think of, like, I mean, is there such a thing as something failing to be realistic in a way that actually, you know, counters that perceived realism effect, right? Like, I mean, it's clearly the game is trying to be realistic but failing, and does that make it somehow feel less offensive or less violent? No, or do you think that doesn't matter?
I mean, if it becomes comical intentionally, then you get into sort of like what was the game designer trying to make and what they actually made. If they like failed to make it disturbing,
so like an artifice is
then,
like. That's when you get into the problem of, like, if you have some sort of like weird, like, fourth wall breaking, deliberately ironic kind of work or something like that, it would be a difficult case to judge, perhaps.
Yeah, wouldn't it? I mean, like, I guess. Well, this pops to mind. I don't know if you guys have seen the trailers for Bulletstorm, but this is like it's Cliffy B's new like first-person shooter, and
It's not actually.
But it's not. No, wait, it's not him. You're right. It's People Can Fly.
Yeah.
They made Painkiller, right? So you have so it's got this concept of skill shots where, like, if you kill people in more complicated ways, like shooting them in the ass, basically, like, you get points for that. But the idea is that it's sort of elevated to it's not like this at all. Even though it's more realistic, because everything, it's like, like, I shoot him in the butt, like, you know, like Halo corpse humping, and that sort of cartoony, it's really gory, more like not Evil Dead, but yeah, or like Evil Dead or Dead or Alive, or one of those, not the video game, but the movie. Dead Alive, yes.
Jackson's greatest film.
Yeah, exactly. Movies like that where it's so gory, it's so bloody, in this weird, distorted way where it becomes humorous.
Yeah, I mean, I find it. I mean, I'm sure there are many people, but I would be very surprised to talk to somebody who took that movie seriously.
Right,
when more blood comes out of a body than is in 5 bodies.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those.
The problem for me is, so far, the context or the framing of a violent scene is not reflected in a rating. Like, beside the sadism thing, that's the only possible way for them in the PEGI system to say that. But the rest is, nobody cares about. Like, for instance, if what you do as, like, if you kill, everybody you kill is innocent or not, doesn't matter, like, for the rating. That's not the point, you know? In this point, that's a good example for sadism in the way that you can choose how you kill people.
Right.
But that's about it, you know? And yeah.
What I was going to say about the thing that's interesting, the Rockstar's games tend to be very I would call them nihilistic or nihilistic, however you pronounce that.
How do I get out of first person?
I don't know. But the thing is, though, like their worlds are sort of conveniently, and I think very deliberately, probably for a ratings, social acceptability point of view, worlds where everybody is just awful. You know what I mean? It's kind of like these people you're killing. I mean, it's not like you're walking into some house where there's some old grandmother who is in a wheelchair and you're killing her with a plastic bag. The thing that was actually brought up earlier that I thought was a good point too is that, well, I hate realism as a word for it, but the idea that in this game, at the very beginning of the game, you don't have a gun, you don't have anything, you just have stuff that anybody would have. Like you have like a plastic bag, you have like a pencil, you know what I mean? You have these things that anybody could just pick up and use. It's not like you have to have access to weapons or anything. So the idea, and I'm not saying that I'm not saying I agree with this, but I can understand how somebody could look at the game and think that, oh my god, if somebody's going to imitate this, it's not like they're going to go out looking for like an alien rifle, like in Halo. They're going to go out looking for like, you know, something they have in the kitchen.
Again, sorry to keep always doing the Henry Portrait of a Silver Core comparison, but if you remember the film really well, the way they kill most of the people in the film is by breaking their neck with their bare hands. And that was another thing, again, and I remember critics essentially discussing it. It's not about like Death Wish 4, where Charlie Bronson has a machine gun on top of the landing and he's gunning people down. These are regular people hurting other people in a very, very graphic way.
Well, it's also because the weapons are so low tech, you have to be way more visceral and way more brutal to kill someone. Sure. Like that, like where he's doing like the behind the kills where he puts the bag over the mask and then like kicks him a bunch of times. Like if you were just playing, I don't know, if you were playing like Gears of War or something, like you just shoot him in the face a couple of times and it doesn't like, you know.
It's more detached.
It's totally detached.
So my discussion, because that's what I mean, I'm very interested in players' experiences. But they are not. Like they said, we don't care about the experience people, we care about the content that we can rate. You know, so it could be, so if you have a cartoony game that makes people like have, people have experiences that are harmful for them, doesn't matter. But as long they need something they can look at. If that doesn't happen.